listener production.
Hey, Tara Cassidy with you. Happy Friday and welcome to The Briefing. Some of Australia's biggest media personalities are the faces of a new anti-racism campaign, with Kyle Sandilands, Eddie McGuire and Peter Stefanovic among those leading the charge.
You can't call out hate while amplifying it. It's like starting a fire and then showing up with a bucket of water and expecting applause. It's just, quite frankly bizarre.
That deep dive into the national Stand Up to Hate campaign is coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Chris Spiru. It's Friday the 18th of July.
Hey Tara, and to you listening. Donald Trump's demanding answers from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after an IDF tank shot at Gaza's only Catholic church, killing 3 people and injuring several others, including a close friend of the late Pope Francis. The shell slammed into the compound on Wednesday, where up to 600 displaced Palestinians are known to shelter, including the elderly, children, and more than 50 people with disabilities.
The recently appointed leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Leo, has now renewed calls for an immediate ceasefire following the military attack, which killed the church's 60-year-old janitor and an 84-year-old woman receiving psychosocial support. In a statement, he says he's deeply saddened by the loss of life and goes on to express his support for the parish priest, who was injured and had formed a close bond with Pope Francis in his final months, often speaking daily to share updates from Gaza. Meanwhile, the Israeli PM has told Donald Trump that the strikes were a mistake, claiming stray ammunition was what hit the church.
And that reportedly came after receiving a furious phone call from Trump over the attack. Now, we have also heard from Israel's foreign ministry, who's issued a very rare apology on socials overnight, saying that Israel never targets churches or religious sites and regrets any harm to a religious site or to uninvolved civilians. Now, that, Tara, is a sentiment that just doesn't sit well with many this morning, including the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Jerusalem, whose church in Gaza has been damaged by Israeli strikes during the war. In a statement, they've called Wednesday's strike a blatant affront to human dignity and a grave violation of life.
We're in the midst of a vicious flu season nationwide, with respiratory illnesses surging, about to break records in one state and putting hospital surgeries on hold in another. Of influenza alone across Australia, there's been more than 200,000 lab-confirmed cases. New South Wales with the most by far, over 76,000 cases, followed by Victoria, nearly 50,000, and Queensland, 37,000, Chris.
Meanwhile, the ACT's set to record its worst flu season ever, with GPs reporting a significant spike, nearly double the figures from last year, and 6 weeks still left of winter. According to the ACT's Australian Medical Association, those stats only represent the people presenting to hospitals and clinics also, so the real rates are likely a lot higher.
Yeah, and the issue's being felt in Queensland too, where elective surgeries have been put on hold at several hospitals due to the influx of flu and COVID presentations, and the Health Minister says the state's hospitals are overwhelmed with cases right now.
These presentations were effectively out of the blue and have put a significant strain on the system.
And he says it means Category 2 and 3 elective surgeries are now being paused until further notice.
Category 1 surgery, we'll still have that surgery going ahead. We have capacity to deliver that.
Tim Nichols has joined the ACT's health authorities in calling for people to get vaccinated to help curb the figures, with the Pharmacy Guild saying majority of the most serious cases haven't been vaccinated.
Over 90% of hospitalisations are being caused by unvaccinated people.
Now, I also checked out the RSV and COVID stats because both are also rife, and there's been over 100,000 RSV cases so far this year, but worse than RSV or influenza is actually COVID, and there's been over 340,000 cases, which is way more than those influenza rates that they're concerned about. And New South Wales was huge. We just mentioned, 100k RSV rates in the whole country. Well, in New South Wales alone, there's been over 130,000 COVID cases. And yes, get your vax, Chris. Interestingly, the age group that's catching it the most is actually people between the ages of 25 and 39, or the next layer was 20 to 49. And the elderly actually the group catching it the least.
Yeah, and for the flu, the age group switched. The people catching the flu the most were kids under 14, no surprises there, as well as toddlers most predominantly. Adults are about half as much. The same for RSV, really rampant in young kids. So the advice is that if you've got young'uns, RSV and flu vax for you, anyone over 20, COVID vax would be a priority than the flu vax.
One of Australia's leading law firms is seeking compensation from Qantas on behalf of the millions of customers whose data was stolen in a cyber attack. A complaint's been filed with the country's privacy watchdog by Maurice Blackburn lawyers on behalf of the 5.7 million people hit by last month's data breach. They're accusing the carrier of failing to take reasonable steps to protect personal info stored in an overseas call centre.
Yeah, the firm's now urging affected customers to register for updates on the complaint and any updates on potential compensation. So far, there's no sign the stolen data has been leaked on the dark web. Qantas says it's still monitoring with the help from cybersecurity experts.
Yeah, and look, I'm glad that they're taking action because I think it's so frustrating time and time again to see these massive companies have these breaches, and it's just like, oh well, we'll try and do better next time, but it's already out there with the baddies. So with a data breach nearly every second day, I think people are getting breach fatigue, but this will be an interesting space to watch and see if it actually progresses to the courts and leads to a change in how our data is stored and where it's stored. Fingers crossed.
Tributes are flowing for an Australian dad killed in a freak base jumping accident in Italy. 42-year-old James Nowland from Perth was killed when he jumped from a summit in Val di Fassa in the Dolomites region. It's understood the Aussie's wingsuit failed to open properly due to a technical issue, causing him to crash about 400 metres from his intended landing point.
And James had been taking part in a base race competition at the time where jumpers basically try to record the fastest time possible from summit to the finish line at the bottom of the mountain. And James's brother has since posted a tribute to social media saying, "Rest in peace, brother. Hope you're soaring through the clouds, doing what you love forever."
Yeah, and sadly, James's death comes just days after another base jumping death in Spain. A popular Spanish TV presenter was killed when her jump went wrong in a northeastern city in Spain just days earlier, with some reports suggesting she may have fallen from a cliff.
Oh gosh, really horrific. And for those that don't really know base jumping that well, it's essentially that adrenaline sport where people jump from really high heights. It could be from cliffs, it could be from mountain peaks, and they use a body-worn parachute to essentially fly or glide to the ground, dodging obstacles and things along the way. And you often see those really crazy videos online where they're really, really, really close to the mountain's edge and come out and glide down the bottom. But it's a really high-risk, extreme sport and certainly not for the faint-hearted. Oh, good.
And whip out your tinfoil hats because it appears my two-part deep dive yesterday is bringing all you conspiracy theorists out of the woodworks, and I love it. For those who missed it, it was a look into whether your council bin is spying on you and how that little tag attached to your bin, plus the cameras in the Garbo's truck and all the other tech around us, could be used against you. So we're thinking things like fines, being denied potentially insurance, and of course the obvious of just being tracked.
Yeah, and there are some strong reactions to the snippet we posted on Instagram and TikTok. Some are saying that they are 100% convinced that the council is spying on us. Others calling it a revenue-raising exercise. One user even described it as corporate psychological warfare to make us buy, which is not entirely wild if you heard the chat.
Yes, while others commented it's just a bin, pretty much telling
it's
me...
It's not that deep.
Yeah, it's not that deep. Saying cookers are going to cook and we should all get thicker tinfoil hats. Now, I don't know about you, Tara, but Aldi's running a really good special on our foil at the moment, and count me in.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm not going to say maybe bins, but I'm super suspicious around phones and things like that. So let's head to Aldi, Chris. before you head away on your 6-week luxury holiday, and I just have one song for you to play.
Oh yes, hold on. Now this is labelled Tara, Chris, no touch. This is what the file's labelled. So let me just double click this one moment, listeners. Yes! Woo!
This is you.
This is me.
Boarding the plane tomorrow as you jet off to Europe. I am very jealous. 6 weeks. Just relax, sip on an Aperol Spritz or 10 for me, please.
Absolutely, I absolutely will. And I do want to correct the record about that luxury holiday. I'll be off to the village and the mountains with the goats, so very limited luxury coming there.
Anything that's not work, you see, it feels like luxury right now, I think.
Correct. Now, look, you guys are going to be in very, very capable hands. You will, of course, have Tara Cassidy with you every single morning. And filling in for me will be Helen Smith and our favourite non-AI but AI-sounding Dan Ben Mullins. He'll be popping in here and there. Guys, I'm going to have a really, really nice, relaxing time away, but I will be seeing you all in due course, and I'm excited to get back and hit the ground running, but just in a few more weeks' time. Now, look, my parting gift to all of you listening is my final deep dive for a few weeks. It's looking into the Stand Up to Hate campaign, which is featuring people like Kyle Sandilands and Eddie McGuire. Stick around, that deep dive is coming up for you next. If you had to pick out some famous Australians to be the faces of an anti-racism campaign, would Kyle Sandilands and Eddie McGuire make your list? Well, they did, and they did for our country's leading media organisations.
Enough.
No more division.
No more hate.
No more racism.
No more anti-Semitism.
No more Islamophobia.
This country is built on diversity.
On fairness. On respect.
Everyone is equal.
The radio shock jock and TV host are a part of the Stand Up to Hate campaign, alongside 11 other prominent Aussies, including Olympian Nova Paris, actress Rachel Griffiths, as well as ex-footy stars Gordon Tallis and Jonathan Brown. Major media outlets, including Channel 7, 9 and 10, as well as News Corp, are backing the national campaign, calling it an unprecedented show of solidarity against racial hatred. But not everyone is convinced these ambassadors are the best choices for an anti-racism campaign. Mibengi Sendaluka is a former News Corp journalist and founder and editor-in-chief of independent media company Backcover Media, and she joins me now. Mibengi, welcome to the briefing. What were your thoughts when you first saw the Stand Up to Hate campaign?
I've got to be honest, when I saw it, I thought, is it April Fool's? Is this a joke? When I saw some of the names that are, historically have been problematic, I did kind of gasp a little. But look, this campaign sort of misses the mark for several reasons. On the surface, I agree with the message. I think that there has been a rise in hate. We've seen a rise in, things like racism, transphobia, Islamophobia. And then secondly, while Australia isn't politically polarised like, say, the US, we've still seen a lot of fear-mongering around things like immigration, crime and Indigenous rights. So, these factors do sort of come into play, which sort of, creates the need for a campaign like this. And let's be honest, brands these days are under pressure to, at the very least, give the illusion that they're inclusive. In fact, research shows that 65% of consumers expect brands to actively support diversity. So there are, reasons that, you would sort of need these campaigns. However, I think that it's a case of the right message, but the wrong messengers.
Do you think what we've witnessed here is a genuine attempt at reflecting some sort of inclusivity, or do you think it's just a little bit shallow?
Yeah, look, I think the campaign misses the mark in a few ways. Firstly, credibility. So these are the same media outlets that have platformed hate for a long time, right? And then secondly, you've got accountability. It is problematic, and you sort of do kind of question things when you've got Kyle as the face of this kind of campaign. It kind of misses the mark. It's hard to take it seriously is what I'm trying to say.
Just a note for our listeners as well, Eddie McGuire has had his fair share of accusations and run-ins with racism, I guess is one way to put it.
Yeah, look, he once joked that Adam Goodes should promote the musical King Kong. So it was racially insensitive, that's for sure. And then he called the release of the racism report into Collingwood a proud day, which was quite bizarre. So he's had a few missteps.
What a great promo that is for King Kong.
Get Adam Goodes down for it, do you reckon?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Or you absolutely no.
You can see them doing it, can't you?
Who?
Goodsy.
What's that?
The big, but the whole thing. I'm just saying the pumping them up and mucking around, all that sort of stuff.
You can't call out hate while amplifying it. It's like starting a fire and then showing up with a bucket of water and expecting applause. It's just quite frankly bizarre. So I think that they're trying to sort of say, look, take a stand against hate across the board, whether that's racism, transphobia, but they aren't really clear on the precise messaging. So having said that, there are some names which I think are credible, like Rachel Griffiths, for example. I've personally met her. She's been doing work, especially within the Indigenous community, for quite some time. So I think that, there is some credibility there. But for the most part, I have to say it just misses the mark.
I do want to get your read on this. Framing is incredibly important, but the opening shot is Rachel Griffiths walking into a black room, and she's flanked by an image of a burning car and a spray-painted Nazi symbol. Both of those are pictures of alleged anti-Semitic attacks, and those are really the only visuals that we get in this campaign. We don't get any other visuals throughout the campaign. What message do you think that sends to a viewer or someone who's watching this campaign?
Yeah, look, I think that they are sort of, trying to call out maybe the rise in anti-Semitism, which we've seen, especially here in Victoria. It's been quite problematic. I think that the campaign will resonate with people that haven't actually directly been impacted by hate directly. So, people might think, well, it's a nice message and continue scrolling or move on. But for those of us in marginalised communities, it feels different. It feels very performative. And essentially, they're trying to rewrite history while the ink is still wet. It doesn't feel sincere. Although I think that the heart is in the right place, I think it needs a bit more work.
If you were the creative director of this project, let's call it, would you have someone like Eddie McGuire calling for an end to Islamophobia?
Absolutely not. If this campaign really wants to make an impact, it needs to centre people with lived experience, not just feature them. It needs to support the work that communities are already doing. I run free media workshops, media training workshops with the Victorian government. That's how you sort of get real change. But for the most part, no, I would not feature someone like Eddie McGuire, Kyle Sandilands, even Peter Stefanovic, who last year ambushed an Indigenous teen who had won a fishing competition, and he wanted to question him about crime.
Someone else has come out of the woodworks today. There is a claim online that you stole a Polaris Ranger and a Polaris Quad that you and your friends stole and damaged from a business a few years back. First of all, is that true?
Yes.
So what happened?
We weren't thinking at the time, as still young at the age.
You regret it?
Yep, big time.
I mean, it's just, quite frankly, unacceptable. So no, I would definitely rethink some of these names that are associated with that campaign and use people with lived experience.
What do you think, though, is behind the idea of getting celebrities and not regular people involved in this campaign? Because my thinking was this is a campaign that's running mostly on television. I haven't seen it hitting socials. So it does live on TV. We know that's where ageing audiences are. In some ways, these are the faces of mainstream Australian media. These are the faces that the audiences most recognise. It kind of makes sense for them to be a part of this, right?
Look, yes, campaigns like this can work, but only if they're backed by real action. For example, the Australian Human Rights Commission's Racism It Stops With Me campaign, that was fantastic. And it worked because it had real follow through. Even like globally speaking, the Me Too movement, I think that also raised incredible awareness and did really well. But I mean, using certain celebrities just because they have a following, I think is, insincere and just a bad move all round. I think that they probably should have done a bit more due diligence and looked into exactly, what these people stand for and possibly enlisted the help of people that are actually already doing significant work within marginalised communities.
When talking about the campaign, News Corp's executive chairman Michael Miller said that media organisations play a vital role in reporting and exposing hatred and that the rise in racism in this country is unprecedented and, quote, not the Australia we know. For many, though, isn't this precisely the Australia they've known for quite some time now?
Look, any sort of intention to combat hate is a good intention, and I, applaud him for doing that, for taking a stand. But you're right, this has been going on for a very, very long time. I recall many, many years ago when, I was a high school student reading the newspaper and seeing this African gangs rhetoric. As an African woman living in Australia at the time, that was hard for me. It really had an impact on my life. So I think Mr. Miller's heart is in the right place, but it's been happening for a long time, and I think that this is something that shouldn't have just, come up because of October 7. I think that it's something that if they were serious about, that they could have started a long time ago. Respect that they are taking a stand now, and hopefully they do, genuinely try to make meaningful change going forward.
Mibengi, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you, Chris.
That was Mibengi Sindaluka speaking with me there. And that is it for this episode of The Briefing. Before you go, though, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this chat. If you're listening on Spotify, feel free to drop us a comment or head on over to Instagram, into our DMs or into our comment sections. We love hearing from you. And don't forget, there will be another episode this afternoon hosted by Natasha Belling. I'm Chris Spiru. Catch you next time.
Listener.